Welcome to another episode of Dino Underneath the Bonnet. Now, I've been waiting to do this for absolutely years, and it's about something which is really dear to my heart: Aston Martins. I've owned Aston Martins all my life, and it made me feel like James Bond, and others nearly broke me financially and mentally. Let me tell you a little bit more about it. Okay, so the first time you see an Aston Martin, it's the shape. It doesn't matter what era it is, they're so recognisable. The shape, the smell, the sound. There's no sound, particularly with the modern Astons, that is, that you do realise that it's sort of quite a high-pitched noise. And then there's the theatre. There's actually arriving to the Aston Martin, I'll explain, and then leaving in an Aston Martin and the theatre that it creates. Most of all, why an Aston feels different to a Porsche or a Ferrari. I have never had a Ferrari, but I've worked and seen the guys. Well, I should rephrase that really. I've watched the guys work really hard on restoring and looking after Ferraris, and boy, they're hard work. First of all, they're Italian. Hello. And they're very hard work. You have to think of it, and many people have said it, it's like a supermodel in a shopping basket, a trolley. It's not really made for this country. The let's say the 1970s, the 1980s, well, anything pre-19... No, I'm going up to 2000 now. Anything before that, and you're into trouble. You're into trouble financially with a Ferrari, and they're so expensive just to keep up with the corrosion. There's tons of it, but I'll save that for another episode because, as normal, I digress. In this, I will briefly mention the difference between a Porsche, Ferrari, and Aston, and how it makes you feel. One of the biggest things about owning an Aston is that you are usually allowed to come out in traffic. Traffic actually lets you out, and they're very kind. If you're in a Ferrari, it's something different. They're a bit more aggressive, the other drivers. By and large, there are many drivers out there. But why do people fall in love with an Aston Martin? First, my very first classic car was a DB5, and it's a DB5. And I fell in love with it because my wife, Amanda, said that's a really good car to buy. And this is going back 25 years now. And yes, it is a good car to buy, as in it's a very good classic car. However, it's not easy to drive. So I bought the Aston. It was my first foray into classic cars, and I didn't realise that owning a classic car is something which is well, it can financially break you, can destroy your willingness to drive it, and quite frightening to drive. It's such an emotive subject. So me being Dino as I am, I don't get dressed up as the part. You would normally see me in those days when I first got into the Aston with a pair of shorts. So I am the most unlikely person And I often thought that when people saw me getting into the Aston, they couldn't quite believe it. I kid you not, the people used to look at me and go, really? And what they're expecting is a James Bond type of character to smoothly walk up, get into the Aston, and then disappear into the distance. Far from it. Let me explain. Well, apart from my attire, I like to appear just normal. One thing I've realised in life, the assets don't make you any different from who you are. If you're trying to pretend to be something else that you're not, it's not worth it. It's honestly not worth it. So, first of all, starting an Aston is quite an art, especially from cold. As you see the James Bond films, they just get into an Aston and off they go. It's quite a traumatic adventure, I found. That is, you put the key in first, you say a prayer, you pump the throttle 5 times, turn the key, and allegedly you go off. Now, in the films, Sean Connery and what's his name? Everybody will know him. I just forget because that's how I am. It'll come to me as I'm going along, but. And it's really easy for them to drive, but it's far from it. So the torture of actually trying to start the car, especially from cold, is just you have to have the right amount of petrol in, not to flood the carburetors, and then be able to drive, and then off you go. Then it's keeping it going as you're driving, which is not very easy at all, especially from cold, because you've got to have that fuel, keep pushing it through. And the ideal thing is that you should warm the car up for about 15 minutes. And then you've got a good chance that the journey will be relatively okay. And that is that once it's warm, off you go. And the noise, it's lovely to hear the engine. The engine is beautiful, absolutely beautiful. But it's all the other noises inside the cabin. The creaks, the groans, and of course there's no power steering. Although we have fitted power steering, and we do have an offer at the moment for all sorts of classic cars on power steering. Do digress, but it's and I found it torture, absolute torture. I wasn't comfortable being able to drive the classic cars, and I don't think even to this day I'm quite comfortable, despite having gone through all these cars. So you shoot down the road, and you think you're doing 100 miles an hour, when in actual fact you're doing about 25 miles an hour. And as you look at the dial is actually going like that. So you've got no idea exactly how fast you are going. And the noise from the engine, the creaks, the groans, you're absolutely terrified. Not of the actual cost of the car itself, but actually trying to get from A to B. Once you arrive at point B, you're so traumatized by the whole experience of it. You get out and you're a complete mess. And even so, when you do get out, especially if you're wearing a pair of shorts, getting out and just a polo top like I'm wearing now, and you are absolutely shattered, drained, and people look at you. I was very self-conscious, and I really didn't like the experience. What I did like about the Aston is that its shape. It was its shape, full stop. It's beautiful, but you do have serious problems of when it's parked up. Well, the first one is oil leaks, and I remember a good friend of mine, a technician called Don. You may remember it, and he would say to me that if there's oil on the floor, then that means there's oil in the car, so it's good. And he was absolutely right. I used to panic about all the oil that was on the floor, and that's one of the things that when a person used to come, or still does, to Car Lab, if they turned up in a Range Rover, well, let's say something, probably a Toyota, they work far better than Range Rovers. But you get the point. They come in a very beautiful car that works, starts, allegedly, so not most Range Rovers do. That's another episode. And then they come in for the first time, just like myself, into a classic car, and it's really difficult to explain that you will break down. That's inevitable. If the petrol gauge works, that's a good point. Of course, you can fix all these things, but if you think that the 1964, they did land man on the moon after, but their technology was very. It's not as it's certainly not as good today, and their mechanical stuff that they had at that point. You're replacing it with new mechanical that was made in the 60s, so they continued making that part, and that part was never good, unless and I'll save this for another podcast episode. I've got so much in there, it's like bursting away, my Lagonda, and I often mention my dear friend Harjeet and how he had redesigned, absolute genius, a mechanical relay into a digital relay, and for the Aston Martin Lagonda. And I'll speak about that another time, but that's a perfect piece of ingenuity, and that's fantastic. However, let's say most classic cars will have oil leaks, electrical gremlins. God, once you've got one of those, let's say in the later DB9s or DB7s, gosh, it's crippling. Actually, owning a DB5 is surprisingly cheap on the insurance, although it does cost a lot. It did surprise me. It's about £200 or £300, and yet the car, although at one point it was up to, let's say, pre-COVID, 700,000-800,000 for a 5. Okay, you can get them restored, and of course the costs will be different. But they're now down at about 400,000. But I was still paying £250 when it was at the highest point. It's probably to do with how many times you're actually going to use it, and the insurance companies probably realised that they're not going to use it because it's so terrifying actually to drive. And I don't know how on earth they did a car chase, because you'd be absolutely terrified. Going 70 miles an hour, my God, it's like using a neglected spaceship. As it's made of aluminium, you don't have too many costs. You do have lamination on the paintwork, and the service bills, well, hit and miss really. But if you start adding up if you say Aston Martin, all of a sudden the parts go up, and they shouldn't really. But the truth is, people love these cars because of James Bond. So if I start with what I know, what I've owned, what was been in my collection, I'm not going to say which ones and what, because I do not want to appear big-headed. No, that's not about the show. The show is about what's it like. So I'll go through the eras. DB2, that's a great little car. It was really well engineered, beautiful shape, and that was, yeah, it was quite unique. A clamshell bonnet. Inside is all beautifully attired, but you still have all the issues of will it work, won't it? It's not terrifying as a 4 or 5. What I did find that a DB6 was much more palatable. You have different schools of thought. It's slightly longer. The engineering was slightly better. They're a very usable car. I use the same gearboxes. Oh, and what you do have is the smell. I forgot the smell. My wife used to say it smells like an old grandma's wardrobe. It can do sometimes when people have over-colonized them. But it's a beautiful car, and the 6s are probably my favourite because you can actually drive them. Then you moved into the era, the strange area, the Virage, and they all sound like, most of them, unless you go to the bigger engined ones, which are they're almost too much for the clutch to handle, and manual car on the Virage is just atrocious. One leg has to be bigger than the other one to be able to work through the gears. Really hard work. I don't really like them. DB7s, you've got the 3.2 and the 6 litre. The 3.2, I remember I had several 7s, and looking back, the 3.2 is like having a blancmange and listening to a Hoover going. They're beautiful inside. The interior is absolutely fabulous. When they go wrong, they go catastrophically wrong. I did hear of a story once that Aston Martin actually bought back a DB7 that had made 120,000 miles. What you will find with the 7s is that they are expensive to run, very expensive. When parts go wrong, I would prefer the bigger engine one with the rounder headlights down below. I think they're quite a nice car indeed. The Vanquish, I could never get to grips with that. The handbrake, for example, if you can actually use it, there's a snatch handbrake, as most Astons have. Honestly, as I'm saying all of this, they're all really quite dreadful, apart from their shape and how it makes you feel. It's strange that a sane person would look at it and go, no, it's not for me. And I guess I'm not sane, and that's why I particularly like the challenge. And I opened Classic Car Lab many years ago because to look after my cars and only my cars, and then it just developed from there on. But it's how it makes you feel. I do, looking back, DB9, and I'll just get a little bit further up and then stop. I think DB9 is, I think that's one of the most elegant Aston Martins. The DBS, very nice too. And I like that. Unfortunately, the cars are bonded, so what that means is there's no weld. They're all stuck together with glue. And when you have an accident, or if you need to get into the engine bay, for instance, because once again, you learn as you go along very expensive mistakes. For example, in the DB9, there was a problem with the oil. There was no oil indicator. The only oil indicator is actually going to the engine bay, looking in there. Let alone you've got to have a battery lead that's always connected in, so you've got the power. That's do you know that's a DB9 story in itself, of all the windows go up, they don't. A bit like Continental GT, but a bit more refined and squeaky. Beautiful when they work, when they stop, and you've got issues of. At that time for the DB9, they used Volvo and Jaguar and Ford parts. So you've got an engine that's two Fords bolted together, and I've been into the engine bay, and incidentally, you don't want any oil issues like we had, and that is just an awful thing because it bent the crankshaft, and what you have to do is separate the car in half to actually get into the engine. I'll do a show just on DB9s because or would you buy one? Again, it's a strange thing. I'm going to say yes, but it's only because I know what the things that could go wrong now are, what specifically to look for. So maybe that's another show. But this one is about the Astons, just in general. So would I buy a cheap Aston? No, never. Never. There is a reason for it. And that is that it's going to cost you. Try and afford the best one with as much information that goes with it, i.e. service record or receipts. It's usually receipts and what people have done, photographic evidence that they've used a good garage to be able to look back on, and that's why we produce images. We document everything that goes on in a car and put it together for the client, so they have a like a compendium of all sorts of different things that have been done. The cheapest is not always the best. You may get a good deal. Thing about good deals now is that there is the internet, and there's usually a good reason why something is really cheap and it's going to cost you. That's why. So what's it like driving one? Fantastic. When you get there to your destination, opening the garage and looking at it, fantastic, because then you forgive it for all its faults and you do get emotionally attached to them. The reality of a dream car ownership, it's very difficult. It's really difficult. You've got to be prepared to spend. It is going to cost you. It's not going to cost you that much on insurance, especially if it's a classic car, that is. I love Astons. I love them. Right from the DB2 to the Lagonda, that's my sort of era. Astons, and I love that. You can always tell it's an Aston because you can hear it. It's slightly more high pitched than not quite high pitched as a Ferrari, and forget warning lights. This is like the earlier Astons, let's say from 2 to 7. Well, I'll include 7 as well. Forget warning lights. The best solution of a warning light is actually to get some black tape and put it over, and then that's the best way to deal with that. Yeah, dream or nightmare? It can be a bit of both. I haven't got an answer for it. All I can assure you is that it is, as that horrible phrase is that it is a journey, and it truly is. And you've got to be prepared to spend, unless you start your own garage, and then that comes with a lot more issues. But do you know what? I really enjoyed talking about this, and if you want to hear more, I've got tons to say. Please ask any questions. Please press subscribe. It's free. Costs nothing. I'm going to just enjoy talking about my experiences. And I'll leave you with this point. When Aston say use proper oil, and it's usually Mobil 1, use it. No other oil comes close to it. It is expensive. I went to Costco to purchase it, as I found that's the cheapest place. You've obviously got the internet, but Costco do great deals, and always use proper oil. But at the end of the day, I'm not James Bond. I would like to feel that perhaps in another life I could have been. But right now, no. But I still enjoy people's faces and look at them and think, no, you're kidding. Him? No way. But yes way. I've enjoyed speaking to you. I really have. Look after yourselves, and good luck today for Noah, my dear friend. He's a young lad from Newcastle who is appearing in a boat challenge down south in London. Fancy London. Fancy. Okay, I've enjoyed speaking to you. Thank you again, and I look forward to seeing you next time. Okay, thanks.